The ballroom doors swing open. 500 heads turn as one. The collective gasp is audible even over the string quartet. She's supposed to be gone, destroyed. The papers ran her obituary 6 months ago, not literally, but close enough. Broken wife flees city in shame. But the woman standing in that doorway, draped in emerald silk with a diamond collar that could fund a small country, she looks like she owns the room. And the man beside her. Silicon Valley hasn't seen him in 8 years. This is impossible. Comment below if you already know this is about to get wild. At table 7, a champagne flute freezes halfway to lips that have forgotten how to close. The man holding it built his empire on reading people, on seeing moves 3 steps ahead. Right now, he's seeing his own funeral. This is the story of how she got here. How a forensic accountant who lost everything used one buried spreadsheet to obliterate the man who thought he'd won. And it starts not with triumph, but with a signature on a lie. Chicago, the Gold Coast. Back when life still made sense, Petra Kovac had the kind of job people at cocktail parties pretended to understand. Senior forensic accountant at Hoffman and Associates. She tracked money that didn't want to be found, offshore accounts, shell companies, the paper trails rich people paid millions to erase. She was good at it, the way some people are good at piano or languages. She could look at a balance sheet and see the story underneath. The affair hidden in restaurant receipts. The fraud buried in equipment depreciation. The truth always left fingerprints if you knew where to look. Her husband, Donovan Webb, found this deeply boring. Donovan was Chicago's golden boy, venture capital king. The man who turned a $50 million inheritance into a $3 billion fund. Webb Capital had its name on half the tech startups that made it big in the 2010s. He was loud, magnetic, the kind of man who walked into rooms and bent gravity. They'd met at a charity gala 12 years ago. She'd been auditing the nonprofit. He'd been the keynote speaker. "You're the woman who makes sure we're not lying," he'd said, that shark smile already in place. "I like that, keeps me honest." It was a lie, of course. But she didn't know that yet. They had one child. Nina, 10 years old, brilliant, swimming in the deep end of childhood before adolescence pulled her under. Nina was the single point of light Petra wouldn't negotiate on. The marriage. That had been cooling for years, like ice in March, still there, but thin enough you could hear it cracking when you walked. It started with a sticky note. February 14th. Valentine's Day, if you believed in that sort of thing. Petra came home early from a client meeting, arms full of groceries for the dinner she'd planned. Nina was at a sleepover. The penthouse was quiet, too quiet. She found the note on the Carrara marble counter. Donovan's assistant's handwriting, not his. "In Cabo through Sunday, called your lawyer, check your email." The email was clinical, divorce papers, filed that morning. A press release already sent to Tribune and Sun-Times, announcing their amicable separation and his relationship with Sienna Vale, a 24-year-old wellness influencer he'd been seeing for 8 months. 8 months. The real gut punch came in bullet point 7 of the settlement offer. Mr. Webb will seek primary custody of the minor child, citing Mrs. Webb's excessive work hours and documented stress-related mental health concerns. Documented, he'd had her therapist's notes subpoenaed, sessions where she'd talked about work stress, about feeling disconnected from her marriage. He was going to use her honesty against her. Her phone rang. Donovan's lawyer. A man named Harlan Price, famous for dismantling prenups like cheap furniture. "Mrs. Webb, I assume you've seen the filing. Mr. Webb has asked me to make something clear." The voice was smooth, professional, cruel. "If you contest custody, we will present evidence of mental instability. Your long hours, your obsessive work habits, the drinking." "I don't drink. We have receipts from Mariano's, 2 bottles of wine per week." The narrative writes itself. Now Mr. Webb is prepared to be generous. You walk away quietly, take the settlement, and Nina spends primary time with her father. You get every other weekend, supervised initially. The room tilted, supervised for her safety. "Given your state, and I'm authorized to offer this, you fight, and we make this so ugly, so public that Nina will read about her mother's breakdown in her high school library. We have a dossier, Mrs. Webb. Failed performance reviews we can reinterpret. Colleagues who will testify to erratic behavior. By the time we're done, you'll be lucky to get supervised monthly visits." Imagine someone threatening your child to keep you silent. Drop a comment, could you stay quiet? The call ended. Petra sat in her $4 million penthouse in her designer kitchen, surrounded by the life she'd built, and understood she had no power at all. The media devoured it. Donovan's PR team, led by a fixer named Cade Sterling who'd rehabilitated senators, had crafted a perfect narrative. Tribune headline, Webb Unbound, VC Titan finds new chapter after suffocating marriage, page 6. Sources say Petra Webb was cold, controlling, and obsessed with work to the exclusion of family. The photos were everywhere. Donovan on a yacht, tanned and laughing, Sienna in a bikini that cost more than most people's rent. Him at charity galas playing the vulnerable hero. I tried, he told Chicago Magazine, but you can't love someone back to life. Petra said nothing. Her friends, the wives of other tech founders, called with hushed voices. Fight this. Everyone knows he's lying. But everyone knew and no one would testify, because Donovan Webb funded their husbands' deals, because crossing him meant exile from the only world they knew. Petra took the settlement, $15 million. A fraction of what she was owed, primary custody to Donovan, every other weekend for her, supervised for 6 months pending evaluation. The day she signed, her hands didn't shake. She'd taken half a Xanax that morning. Enough to keep steady, not enough to blur her mind. Her lawyer, a decent man named Paul Kirchner from a decent firm, looked defeated. Petra, I'm so sorry, we could have fought this. The therapist notes are questionable. It's fine, Paul. It's not fine, he's taking you for everything. She looked at him, not everything. The final meeting happened in Price's office, glass walls, lake views. The kind of place designed to make you feel small. Donovan was there. First time she'd seen him in person since February. He looked good, rested, he'd always looked good. Petra, he didn't stand. I'm glad we could keep this civil. She said nothing. Price slid papers across the table. The asset division, as agreed. The penthouse goes to Mr. Webb, the vacation home in Michigan also Mr. Webb, the art collection, I want one piece. Price blinked. Excuse me. The Rothko study from the home office. Donovan frowned. That's part of the collection, worth maybe $60,000. Why? It was a gift, our first anniversary, I'd like it. Silence. Donovan looked at Price, who shrugged. If we remove the Rothko, Mrs. Webb waives all claims to the remaining collection, valued at $8. $3 million? Yes. Donovan laughed, actually laughed. Done. Christ, Petra, you could have pushed for half. You're taking a $60,000 painting and walking away from millions. She looked at him for the first time, really looked. I'm taking what matters to me, Donovan. What matters to you is a painting I bought on a whim 12 years ago. He shook his head. I'd say I'm surprised, but honestly, I'm just relieved this is over. Notice something off? Comment if that painting seems important, she signed. The Rothko was delivered to her new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in Lincoln Park, 3 days later. The world moved on, the way it always does. Donovan and Sienna got engaged. Not married yet, he was taking his time, doing it right this time. Code 4, the prenup lawyers were still negotiating. He co-chaired the annual Chicago Technology Leadership Gala, the city's biggest power event. Every tech founder, every VC, every politician who mattered would be there. It was coronation and networking wrapped in $5,000 tickets and auction paddles. Petra disappeared, not literally, but she stopped going to the country club, stopped attending fundraisers. Her friends, the ones who'd promised to support her, found she'd stopped returning calls. She's broken, they whispered over lunch at Gibson's. Donovan destroyed her. Her lawyer called once. Petra, I need to ask, the Rothko. Why did you fight for it? It reminds me of better days, Paul. An $8 million collection for $60,000 in sentimental value. She was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes sentiment is all we have. Meanwhile, Donovan grew bolder. Webb Capital announced its biggest fund yet, $2 billion raised, aimed at disruptive healthcare AI. The Tribune called him a visionary. Forbes put him on a cover. And in her Lincoln Park apartment, Petra hung the Rothko study above her desk, dark reds and blacks. Moody, she'd always liked it. Donovan had bought it from a gallery in River North back when he still pretended to care about art. She looked at it every morning, every night. The Rothko wasn't a Rothko. It was a study, a practice piece. The artist, a graduate student named Felix Ruiz Ochoa who'd been experimenting with embedded digital art, had built something no one expected in 2012. A painting with secrets. The frame was custom, thick black walnut 4 inches deep. Inside the frame, hidden behind the canvas stretcher, was a digital storage device, not a thumb drive. A solid-state drive, 2 TB, sealed in waterproof resin and wired to a micro USB-C port hidden behind the hanging wire. Felix had been ahead of his time. What if art could hold information? He'd written in his thesis, what if a painting was a vault? Donovan had bought it because a gallery owner told him it was investment-grade contemporary. He'd hung it in his home office because it matched the furniture. For 12 years it had hung there, the backdrop to every video call, every strategy session, every private meeting in that glass-walled room where he'd built his empire. And for 12 years Petra had known exactly what it was. Because she'd been there the night Donovan bought it. She'd read the placard, she'd talked to Felix at the opening. "You're an accountant?" he'd asked. "Then you understand, sometimes the most valuable thing is what people don't see." She'd never told Donovan, why would she? It was just a clever art project, until it wasn't. Subscribe so you don't miss how this painting destroys everything. 3 weeks after the divorce finalized, Petra sat in her apartment with a jeweler's loupe and a screwdriver. She removed the canvas from the frame, found the port, cleaned 12 years of dust from the connection. She plugged it into her laptop. The drive mounted. A single folder, backup web capital operations. Inside were files, spreadsheets, PDFs, voice memos, emails. It was everything. Donovan had used the home office for his most sensitive work. And because he trusted the room was secure, because he'd swept it for cameras, for bugs, for anything that could record him, he'd never considered the art on the wall. But he'd backed up his laptop to the network. And the network, in a moment of paranoia 5 years ago when he'd feared a partner might betray him, had been configured to back up to all available storage devices. Including the one in the painting frame, the backups were automatic, silent, complete. Petra opened the first folder, Carillon Deal 2019. Carillon Health was a healthcare startup. Webb Capital had invested $80 million. The company had gone public 2 years ago, making Donovan another $400 million. The documents told a different story. Internal memos showing Donovan had insider information, clinical trial results before they were public. Emails coordinating with the CEO to suppress negative data. A wire transfer to a physician who'd altered a study outcome. It was textbook securities fraud. She opened another folder, BRIXTON short 2020. Brixton Analytics, a Chicago data firm. Webb Capital had shorted their stock, then released a research report through a shell company claiming fraud. The stock crashed. Brixton folded. Donovan made $200 million. The files showed he'd fabricated the fraud allegations, paid a journalist, destroyed a legitimate company for profit. She kept reading. There were 12 deals like this, each one illegal. Each one meticulously documented because Donovan was paranoid enough to keep proof, insurance against partners who might turn on him, but arrogant enough to think he'd hidden it perfectly. He'd hidden it in the painting. The painting he'd forgotten about. The painting he'd given his wife in a divorce because it was worth only $60,000. Petra sat back, looked at the screen, then she made a phone call. The man who answered lived in Montana. A ranch so remote you needed a helicopter to reach it in winter. "This is Petra Webb. I need to speak with Lucien Carver." Silence. Then, "Lucien Carver doesn't take calls. Tell him I have files on the Brixton Analytics short. Tell him Donovan Webb's name is all over them." 3 minutes later, a different voice, deep, careful. "Mrs. Webb." Lucien Carver was a ghost. Once he'd been the founder of Helix Dynamics, a machine learning company that was going to revolutionize logistics. Webb Capital had been an early investor. Then Donovan had orchestrated a hostile takeover, ousted Lucien, sold the company's patents to a Chinese firm for $800 million. Lucien had tried to sue, lost, disappeared. Rumor was he'd gone full hermit, bought land, vanished into the wilderness with his billions or what was left after Donovan gutted him. "I'm listening," Lucien said. Petra explained. The painting, the drive, the files. When she finished, Lucian was quiet for a long time. You're telling me Donovan Webb documented his own crimes and stored them in a painting he gave you? Yes. Why are you calling me? Because Brixton Analytics. That was your company too. You'd invested $20 million personally before Donovan destroyed it, and because I know you've been waiting for this. Another silence. Then, what do you want? I want him exposed. Not arrested quietly, not a settlement behind closed doors. I want him humiliated publicly in front of everyone who matters. The Gala, she could hear the smile in his voice. I know people. Investigative journalists, the kind who can't be bought, they'd need to verify everything. The files are airtight. I'm a forensic accountant. I've spent 3 weeks vetting every transaction. It's prosecutable. And your name stays clean. I was the wife. I knew nothing. I found the files during asset division. That's the truth. Lucian laughed. It was a dark sound. He underestimated you. They all did. I'll make the introductions, but Petra, this will end him completely. His reputation, his fund, his freedom. Are you ready for that? She thought of Nina, of supervised visits, of the humiliation, of the threat to make her seem crazy so he could take her daughter. I've been ready for 6 months. The journalists were from ProPublica, Camilla Zhang and Rothko Adami. They'd broken the story on pharmaceutical price fixing 2 years ago, put 3 executives in prison. They met in a conference room at Hoffman and Associates, Petra's old firm. Her former boss, a woman named Diane Kowalski, had let them use the space. What Donovan did to you was criminal, Petra. Use whatever you need. Petra connected her laptop to the projector. I'm going to walk you through 12 separate instances of securities fraud, market manipulation, and insider trading conducted by Webb Capital between 2019 and 2024. Camilla leaned forward. How'd you get this? It was backed up to a storage device in a painting. My husband used it as Dacre in his office for 12 years. When we divorced, I requested it specifically. Rothko whistled. He just gave it to you? He didn't know what it was. For 6 hours, Petra walked them through the files. The Carillon insider trading, the Brixton fabrication, a real estate scheme in 2021 where Webb Capital had bribed city officials for zoning changes, a pump and dump scheme involving a crypto startup. Each case had paper trails, emails, wire transfers, voice memos of Donovan bragging about the schemes. This is a prosecutor's dream, Camilla said. Why come to us first? Because if I go to the SEC, he'll tie it up in litigation for years. His lawyers are better than the government's. But if this goes public first, if everyone sees what he did, the SEC will have political pressure to act fast. He won't be able to spin it. Rothko nodded slowly. When do you want this published? The Chicago Tech Gala is in 12 days. He's co-chair. Every major player will be there. I want the story to drop the night of the event. I want him to watch his world collapse in front of everyone. Comment checkmate if you see where this is going. Camilla and Rothko exchanged looks. We'll need 2 weeks to verify everything. You have 12 days. I've done the verification. Every document is cross-referenced. Every transaction is traceable. I'm a senior forensic accountant. This is what I do. You're not fact-checking my work. You're confirming I'm not lying. Rothko smiled. I like you. I don't need to be liked. I need Donovan Webb destroyed. They left with encrypted copies of everything. Petra sat alone in the conference room, looking at the city through the windows. The lights were coming on as dusk settled over the loop. Diane came in. You could have taken all that to the SEC yourself, gotten witness protection, immunity. Why this way? Petra didn't turn, because I want him to see it coming. I want one perfect moment where he understands I did this, that the woman he called broken ended him. That's not justice, Petra, that's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. The days blurred. Petra went to work. She'd taken a consultant position at a smaller firm, something quiet. She visited Nina every other weekend. Supervised visits with a court-appointed monitor who took notes and made her feel like a stranger in her daughter's life. Nina asked once, Mom, why did you leave? The monitor was watching. Petra chose her words carefully. I didn't leave, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need to live in different places, but I didn't leave you. At night, she worked with Camilla and Rothko. They video-called from secure connections. Verified sources built the narrative, Lucian called once. I've arranged something. What? A ticket to the gala. Technically, it's mine. I'm still on the board of 2 companies Donovan invested in. They can't legally bar me. I'll be there. You haven't been seen in public in 8 years. I know, that's why it'll matter, and Petra, you'll need a dress. Something that makes a statement? She hung up, looked at her closet. Everything she owned was muted, professional, the wardrobe of a woman trying to disappear. That night she called a designer. A woman named Hannah Seo who dressed her for fundraisers back when she was Mrs. Donovan Webb. Hannah, I need something for the tech gala. Hannah was quiet. Petra, I heard about the divorce. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Can you do it? What are you thinking? I need to look like I never left, like the last 6 months didn't touch me, like I'm walking into that room as the most powerful version of myself. Hannah paused. Emerald, emerald. 5 days before the gala, the dress arrived. Silk, floor-length with a neckline that demanded attention without asking for it, and a diamond collar on loan from Cartier arranged by Lucian that looked like controlled fire. Petra stood in her apartment wearing the dress, looking at herself in the mirror. She didn't look broken, she looked like the reckoning. The Chicago Technology Leadership Gala was held at the Field Museum, because of course it was. We're better for titans of industry to gather than surrounded by dinosaur bones and gemstones. Donovan had insisted on the location. It's iconic, he'd told the board. Says we're building something that'll last millennia. The event drew 600 people. Founders, investors, politicians. Governor was expected, 2 senators, the mayor, tech press from both coasts. Tickets started at $5,000. Tables went for $100,000. The charity Chicago STEM Education would raise over $8 million. Donovan would get credit for all of it. He'd planned his entrance carefully. He'd arrive with Sienna, who'd be wearing something calculated to trend on social media. They'd walk the carpet, do interviews. He'd give a speech about innovation and integrity. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't obscene. Petra's plan was simpler: arrive late, after Donovan's entrance. After the initial frenzy died down, slip in quietly, except Lucian had other ideas. We're arriving together, he told her the day before. I'll pick you up at 7:15, event starts at 8, we'll be fashionably late. Lucian, if we walk in together, people will. Exactly. They'll talk, they'll wonder, they'll look at you and remember you're not the broken woman from the tabloids. And when the story drops at 9 p.m., they'll realize they watched the prelude. She wanted to argue, but he was right. The night before the gala, Petra barely slept. She kept thinking about Nina, about the risk. If this went wrong, if Donovan found a way to spin it, he'd use it to take Nina completely. But if she did nothing, she'd lost already. At 3 a.m. she got up, made tea, stood by her window looking at the city. Her phone buzzed. Camilla, stories locked. Publishing at 9 p.m. tomorrow, it's airtight. He's done. Petra typed back. Thank you. Then she went to bed and slept finally like someone who'd finished a long race. The town car pulled up to the Field Museum at 8:47 p.m., late enough that the press was restless. Early enough that everyone was still in the cocktail hour. Lucian stepped out first. The cameras didn't recognize him immediately, but the Wall Street Journal reporter did. Oh my God, Carver, Lucian Carver. The name rippled through the press line like voltage. Cameras pivoted, flashes exploded. Lucian, why are you here? Are you back in Chicago? Is this about Webb? He didn't answer, just turned and offered his hand to the car. Petra took it. The emerald silk caught the light first, then the diamonds at her throat. Then her face, makeup subtle but devastating, hair swept back in a way that said she'd stopped apologizing. The silence was a living thing. A photographer from Tribune dropped his camera, caught it, raised it. The flash was blinding. Petra Webb, oh my God. Is that, she's supposed to be, the press exploded, not in questions, in pure chaos. Because this wasn't possible. The broken woman was gone. This woman looked like she'd bought the museum. Inside, Donovan was mid-conversation with a state senator, talking about regulatory frameworks. Smiling, winning. His assistant, a new one, younger than Sienna, rushed over. Sir, there's something happening outside. What? Lucian Carver just arrived with your ex-wife. The senator kept talking. Donovan didn't hear a word. The room tilted slightly. What did you say? Petra Webb, she's here with Carver. Impossible. Lucian hadn't been seen in public in 8 years and Petra was broken. She was hiding. He turned, saw the entrance, saw the crowd parting, saw them. Lucian looking like he'd never left. And Petra, she didn't look at him, not yet. She was speaking to someone, a venture capitalist who'd ghosted her after the divorce. The man looked terrified and fascinated in equal measure. Donovan's mouth was dry. Sienna appeared at his elbow. Babe, who is that woman everyone's staring at? He couldn't speak. Subscribe before the next move, you won't want to miss what happens. Petra moved through the room like a glacier. Slow. Inevitable, people stepped aside. Some greeted her cautiously, others pretended not to see her. She was heading toward him. No, past him to the bar. She ordered something. He couldn't hear what. The bartender poured. She took the glass, turned, and finally looked directly at him. 3 seconds. That's all it was. She didn't smile, didn't glare, didn't acknowledge him beyond the simple fact of eye contact. It was the look you give a stranger on the train, neutral, uninterested. He'd been erased. His hands were shaking. He put down his drink before anyone noticed. Donovan excused himself, told Sienna he needed the restroom. Instead, he found a hallway near the Hall of Gems. Empty, dim. He pulled out his phone, called Cade Sterling, his PR fixer. Donovan, enjoying the gala? Petra's here. Silence, then, excuse me, my ex-wife, she's here. With Lucian Carver. Carver, the Helix guy, he's been gone for... I know how long he's been gone. What is this? What is she doing? Probably making a statement, showing she's not broken. It's fine. It's actually good for us. Shows you weren't the only villain in the marriage. This doesn't feel fine. Donovan breathed. She signed the divorce agreement. She took the settlement. Whatever she's doing tonight, it's theater. Let her have her moment. By tomorrow, no one will care. He wanted to believe that. He hung up, leaned against the wall, tried to think. The painting, the thought came from nowhere. The Rothko study, she'd insisted on it, fought for it specifically. Why? He tried to remember. The painting had hung in his office for years. He'd done thousands of deals with it on the wall, calls, meetings. His stomach dropped. He pulled out his phone again, called his head of security. I need you to go to the penthouse. Now check my old office. There was a painting, the Rothko study. I need to know if there's anything unusual about it. Sir, I'm off duty. Can this wait until... No, now check the frame. Check for devices, cameras, anything. You think someone bugged your office? I think I need to know what was in that painting. He hung up, his heart was hammering. This was paranoia. It had to be. The painting was just a painting. But Petra was a forensic accountant. She found hidden things for a living, and he'd given her 12 years of access to his office. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. Everyone else is. At 9:02 p.m., 600 phones buzzed simultaneously. ProPublica alert. The Webb Files, How Chicago's Venture Capital King Built His Empire on Fraud. The article was devastating. 8,000 words, 12 separate schemes. Names, dates, dollar amounts, voice recordings, emails, wire transfers, and photos, screenshots of Donovan's own communications, his own words. Brixton is dead, made $200 M today. Sometimes you have to destroy good companies to make great money. Carillon trial data is a disaster. We bury it, we're golden. Already paid off Dr. Henshaw. A state senator dropped her phone. A venture capitalist from New York went pale. The Tribune reporter was already typing. Donovan was still in the hallway when his phone started ringing. His lawyer, his COO, his board chair. He answered the board chair first. Richard, I don't know what this is, but is it true, any of it? No, it's fabricated. Someone's trying to... Donovan, they have your voice, your emails, your wire transfers. The SEC is already calling. This isn't spin territory. This is criminal. The line went dead. His lawyer called next. Don't say anything to anyone, not a word. I'm coming to get you. Where are you? The Field Museum, the Gala. A pause. You're still there? I didn't know until 2 minutes ago. Get out now. Don't talk to press. Don't talk to anyone. I'll meet you at your building. Donovan stumbled back toward the main hall. The energy had changed. Conversations had stopped. Everyone was on their phones, reading, whispering. He saw Petra. She was standing near the donor wall, talking to Lucian. She wasn't checking her phone. She already knew. She'd known all along. Comment, did they deserve this? Yes or absolutely yes, his assistant appeared. Sir, the press outside is asking for a statement. Should I? No, sir, people are leaving. The mayor just left. Governor's people are saying he's not coming. What do we? Get the car. He started toward the exit. A reporter from Bloomberg stepped into his path. Mr. Webb, any comment on the ProPublica story? Are the allegations true? No comment. Did you commit securities fraud? I said no comment. Sir, they have recordings. Your own voice, did you bribe? Donovan shoved him, not hard, just enough to get past. But the cameras caught it. The shove, the panic in his face. The man who'd always been controlled, polished, unshakable, gone, replaced by something desperate. The photo would be everywhere by morning. By 10 p.m., Donovan was in his penthouse. His lawyer, Price, was there. So was his crisis management team. We need to issue a statement, Cade said. Deny everything. Claim the recordings are deepfakes. They're not deepfakes, Price said flatly. The documentation is legitimate. Donovan, where did they get this? Donovan was staring at the wall, at the empty space where the Rothko study used to hang. The painting, he said. What? Petra, the divorce. She asked for one painting. A Rothko study, I gave it to her. I thought, his voice cracked, I thought it was worthless. Price leaned forward. What about the painting? I backed up my files to the network, all my files, everything. The network was configured to back up to all available storage. I did it years ago, paranoid about partners stealing data. So the painting had a storage device embedded in the frame. I forgot it was even there. Every illegal deal, every bribe, every manipulation, it was all backed up automatically to that drive. For 12 years. The room went silent. You're telling me, Price said slowly, that you gave your ex-wife a hard drive containing evidence of 12 years of federal crimes. I didn't know it was. You gave it to her. Cade stood, started pacing. Okay, this is containable. We say she planted the evidence. We say she fabricated. The recordings are my voice, Donovan said. The emails have metadata, wire transfers have blockchain trails. You can't fake that. She didn't fabricate anything. She just found what I'd hidden. Price closed his laptop. Then you need a criminal defense attorney, not me. I do divorces and civil litigation. This is FBI territory. What are you saying? I'm saying you're going to prison, Donovan. The only question is for how long. But here's what none of them knew, what the article didn't say. What Petra had held back. The files contained something else, something worse than fraud. In December 2020, Webb Capital had invested in Meridian Biotech, a pharmaceutical startup. The company was developing a drug for childhood leukemia, promising results, FDA fast-track approval likely. Donovan had shorted his own investment, secretly through offshore accounts. Then he'd paid someone to tamper with the clinical trial, swap samples, make the drug look ineffective. The trial failed, Meridian collapsed. Children lost access to a treatment that might have saved them. Donovan made $340 million. Petra hadn't given that part to ProPublica, not yet, because that would mean criminal charges beyond white-collar fraud. That would mean people understanding he'd killed children for profit. She was saving it, waiting to see if he'd try to plea down, if he'd try to spin this as aggressive but legal business tactics. If he did, she'd release the Meridian files. And then he wouldn't just lose his freedom, he'd lose any chance of redemption. Ever. Comment if you think there's more coming. The twist wasn't just that Petra had the files. It was that she only showed them part of what she had. The real weapon was still loaded. The arrests came at dawn. 3 black SUVs outside Donovan's building. FBI, Securities and Exchange Commission, U.S. Attorney's Office. They'd moved fast. The ProPublica article had included enough evidence that federal prosecutors had probable cause by midnight. A judge had signed warrants by 2 a.m. Donovan answered the door in a bathrobe. He'd been up all night. His lawyer had told him to expect this. Donovan Webb, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, market manipulation, and conspiracy to defraud investors. They cuffed him, read him his rights. The perp walk through the lobby was filmed by every news outlet in Chicago. The photo, Donovan in a bathrobe and handcuffs, face gray, eyes hollow, went viral within minutes. Tribune headline, The Fall of the Wolf. Webb Capital founder arrested in massive fraud scheme. By noon, Webb Capital's board had suspended him. By 2 p.m., they'd voted him out completely. By 5 p.m., 3 partner firms had pulled their investments. The fund was hemorrhaging capital. Sienna posted an Instagram story. "I had no idea, my heart is broken, sending love to everyone affected." She was on a plane to Los Angeles by evening, but the real destruction was quieter. Personal, Nina's school called Petra, the headmaster. "Mrs. Webb, we wanted you to know before the other parents start talking. Given the allegations against your ex-husband, we think it's best if Nina takes a few days off. Let things settle." Translation: we don't want the scandal touching our school. Petra picked Nina up that afternoon. Supervised visits were suspended, the court monitor had called that morning. Given the circumstances, Mrs. Webb, we're recommending immediate custody evaluation. Mr. Webb's fitness is now in question. Nina sat in the car, quiet. She was 10 but not stupid. She'd seen the headlines, heard whispers. Mom, is Dad a criminal? Petra's hands tightened on the wheel. This was the moment she'd feared, the moment Nina would learn the truth. Your dad made bad choices, sweetheart. He hurt people to make money, that's against the law. Did you know? Not when we were married. I found out after. Nina was quiet for a long time. Then, is that why you left? I didn't leave you, Nina. I left a situation that wasn't safe. And I waited until I could prove the truth to keep you safe. Are you the one who told on him? Petra pulled into her apartment parking lot, looked at her daughter. Yes, Nina nodded slowly, processing. Good. That night Nina stayed with Petra, no supervision, no court monitor. Just mother and daughter making pasta and watching old movies, pretending the world outside wasn't imploding. Donovan's bail hearing was a circus. Prosecutors argued flight risk. He'd been caught with tickets to the Cayman Islands in his phone's travel app. The judge denied bail. He was sent to Metropolitan Correctional Center, the same place they'd held corrupt politicians and mob bosses. His cell was 8 by 10 feet. His neighbors were awaiting trial for murder and drug trafficking. The fall was total, complete. His legal team tried to negotiate. Price reached out to the U.S. attorney. Mr. Webb is willing to cooperate, provide information on other actors. He can. We don't need his cooperation. We have his files, every transaction, every co-conspirator. He has nothing to trade. Cade Sterling, the PR fixer, released a statement on Donovan's behalf. My client maintains his innocence and looks forward to his day in court. The statement got ratioed on Twitter within an hour. ProPublica released a second article that week, audio recordings of Donovan bragging about the schemes. You just have to be smarter than the regulators. And let's face it, that's not hard. Webb Capital dissolved within 2 months. Investors sued. Partners turned on each other. The fund that had once managed $3 billion was liquidated for pennies on the dollar. And then Petra released the Meridian files. She gave them to the same ProPublica team. They published on a Monday morning, the Webb Files Part II, How Venture Capital Fraud Cost Children Their Lives, the Pharmaceutical Trial Tampering. The children who'd been in the trial, the drug that might have saved them. The $340 million Donovan made betting against their survival. That was the end, not of his legal case that would take years, but of any sympathy. Any chance at redemption? 3 mothers from the Meridian trial held a press conference. Standing behind them, Petra, not as a witness, as a supporter. Mrs. Webb provided us with the evidence we needed, one mother said. She didn't have to. She could have stayed silent, but she chose our children over her own comfort. Petra didn't speak, just stood there, present, accountable. The custody battle ended quietly. Donovan's lawyers withdrew all claims. Given the charges, given the evidence, there was no argument for his fitness as a parent. Nina moved in with Petra full-time. The supervised visits were dropped, the evaluation was canceled. On a Thursday in August, Petra and Nina sat in their small apartment, eating ice cream and watching the sunset over Lincoln Park. Do you miss the big house? Nina asked. Petra thought about it. The penthouse, the staff, the life. No, she said, I don't. Me neither. 6 months after the gala, Petra sat in a conference room at Northwestern Law School. She was speaking to a class on forensic accounting and ethics. The question you should ask, she told the students, isn't what's legal, it's what's right. Because sometimes what's legal is still profoundly wrong, and sometimes the only way to stop it is to be the person willing to look. After class, a student approached her. "Ms. Webb, how did you know to check the painting?" "I didn't, not at first, but I knew my ex-husband. I knew he was paranoid and arrogant in equal measure. Those two traits make people keep evidence of their crimes. They think it protects them. Usually it just gives someone else the proof they need." The student nodded. "Then, do you regret it, taking him down like that?" Petra considered. "I regret that it had to happen. I regret that the system failed so badly that a private citizen had to become the prosecutor. But do I regret exposing him? No, silence protects predators. I wasn't going to be silent anymore." She'd been offered book deals, movie rights, Oprah wanted an interview, she declined everything. This wasn't about fame, it was about making sure Nina grew up knowing her mother had chosen truth over comfort. The settlement money, $15 million, she'd put in trust for Nina's education and future. She was living off her consultant salary. It was enough. Lucien called sometimes, checking in. They'd become friends. The kind forged in shared purpose. The SEC filed final charges, he told her in September. 47 counts, the trial's set for next spring. "Will you testify? Already planning to, if they need me." They wouldn't though, the files spoke for themselves. Petra's role was done. In October, Petra launched the Kovach Foundation, named for her maiden name, her identity before she became Mrs. Webb, the foundation's mission. Providing resources and legal support for people silenced by powerful partners. Divorce cases where abuse was hidden behind NDAs. Custody battles where money bought false narratives. Women and men who'd been told their truth didn't matter. "We give people two things," Petra told the Chicago Sun-Times. "Expert forensic accounting to find the hidden assets and lawyers who aren't afraid of bullies. Money silences people because they think they can't fight back. We make the fight possible." The first client was a woman named Teresa Lim. Her husband, a real estate developer, had hidden $40 million in offshore accounts. Told her she'd get nothing if she fought, threatened to take her kids. The Kovach Foundation took her case, found the accounts, exposed the fraud. Teresa got half of everything in primary custody. By the end of the year, the foundation had helped 17 people. 17 families who'd been told to stay quiet had found their voices. Petra did an interview with NPR. The host asked, "What do you want your daughter to learn from this?" "That silence isn't safety," Petra said. "That powerful people only stay powerful if we let them. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is be the person who looks when everyone else turns away." What would your foundation focus on? Comment below. 2 years later, a coffee shop in Lincoln Park. Early morning, Petra sat with her laptop reviewing a case file. A new client. Similar story, powerful husband, hidden assets, threats. Nina was at school, thriving. She was 12 now, funny, sharp, unafraid. Last week she'd asked, "Mom, do you think Dad will ever get out?" "Eventually, he'll serve time, but probably not life." "Will you be scared?" "No. Because the truth is already out. He can't threaten me with exposure. Everyone knows who he is now." "Good." Petra's phone buzzed, a news alert. Donovan's trial had concluded. Guilty on 43 of 47 counts. Sentencing in 3 weeks. Prosecutors asking for 20 years. She felt nothing, not satisfaction, not anger, just a quiet sense of completion. The barista called her name. She picked up her coffee. As she returned to her table, she noticed a young woman watching her. Nervous. "Excuse me, are you Petra Kovach?" She'd stopped using Webb 2 years ago, legally changed back to her maiden name. "I am. I just wanted to say thank you. My sister used your foundation last year. She got out, got her kids back. She's safe now because of you." Petra felt her throat tighten. "I'm glad we could help." "You didn't just help. You showed her she wasn't crazy, that she wasn't alone." The woman's eyes were wet. "You showed a lot of us that." After she left, Petra sat with her coffee, thought about the painting, about the files. About the moment she'd realized she had the power to end him. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, the one in the modest apartment looking at a Rothko study and understanding what it really was. That woman had been scared. Alone. Told she was broken, but she'd never been broken. She'd been compressed, coiled, waiting, and when the moment came, she'd struck with precision. The story wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about reclamation. about taking back the narrative from the people who'd tried to write you out of it. Petra finished her coffee, opened the new case file. Another person who needed help, another person who'd been told to be quiet. She started typing notes. Because silence only protects the powerful. And she'd learned finally after all of it that her voice wasn't just a weapon, it was a key. If this story moved you, subscribe. Still not subscribed? Comment why. I genuinely want to know what's stopping you.